All right, a good day to you all. Sam here with you. It's a Monday. We're midday on March 5th today. And per members voting here, we have a request to do Stellar Lumen to Bitcoin. Now, I've got it up here on two different charts, so just to show you how I'm getting here. So if we go over to CoinGecko, and which I always like to do, we've done this coin several times before if you follow me, but if you're seeing it for the first time, it's always a good reference here. You can see how strong this project is. I mean, market cap of 6.8, almost 6.85 billion. So strong project, right? We can be clear there. One of the majors, and we can see here where it's trading. Now, the bulk of it's traded against Bitcoin, and you can see right now per today, the bulk of the trading in Stellar is on Binance. So they're dominating here at 31%, as they do with so many alts. You know, no question that's where the bulk of the trading is, but you have to be careful about that if you have the choice and you're considering some analysis here. If we come back over here, so here it is on Binance here, and we can see that the history of data that they have here only goes back to a low here that's on December 10th. Well, if we come over here to Bittrex, excuse me, where we have more history, well, December 10th is right in about here. So they're working from this low here because we have more data. I'm going to do the analysis here on Bittrex because we have a lower low here, relatively speaking here. So we have the full picture here. Not that I'm viewing this as a 1-2. I think this is a complete recycle, but we do have a starting point down here that I think we can't ignore. So with regards to analysis, until we get more clarity on what we have here, I think it's going to change the swing low that you're pulling from to get that pivot here. So if this ends up being a low, both sides, and we go off into a new trend, well, then maybe you can put more focus on what's happening over on Binance. But for the time being, we have to factor in the historical low relative to the amount of time you've been able to trade Stellar Lumen to Bittrex, or Stellar Lumen on Bittrex. So here's our low that we're going to work with. So given that, we get a completed 5-wave structure here. So from swing low to swing high, all we're doing is just checking for a potential second. Could that be a second? Well, it certainly sets up in a way that would make sense. So for the very largest degree, we'd be playing this as the start of it. This would be the 1 wave, and we're somewhere down here looking for a 2, 3, 4, 5 up here. Let's go up to a degree that would make sense, and it's easy for you to see it. And so that, could this be the low in here? Yeah, sure could. All right. I mean, so just looking here now, this is a 12-hour chart, which I always suggest it's a good idea to step back and see where you are in the trend. Is there a trend on this degree? Well, certainly you could make the case that all we're doing here is correcting this first move. So when's this high? This is we got January 26th. So clearly a downtrend for the last 6 weeks or so. Clearly a downtrend, but we're still just internal from swing low to swing high. We're just making an internal correction. So if we look here, there's some complexity to this, as much like so many of the alts where we're getting these complex corrections here, where you've got to put together what I would propose to you are two ABCs. So we get an ABC into the low here. Here's the bounce at the 50. So this was tradable here. You wouldn't have known that we were going to roll over here. So the buy here at the 50, well, it just doesn't get to its target. It doesn't get there. So we come back over. Now, so you look at this from an Elliott perspective, and you'd have to conclude that you've got an ABC into the 50, commonly done. Then we get an ABC here correcting, still correcting. That's the X wave. And then it would appear that we have an ABC coming down into this low for, potentially here, this could be a front run on the 618. We can't be definitive just yet. We got to dig into that low a little bit more. But just at this glance here, it would appear we've got a WXY putting in a second. So the upside is still, substantial. We can even just for the second algo target up here, if I get all this up and moved away, that's only the negative 618. So a lot of blue sky here, a lot of chart we could be heading to some significantly higher highs up here. But we got to kind of qualify this pivot to see, is it, because that's kind of So you always have to ask your question, if we're making a pivot, why are we making it there? Well, you could make the case that you've got this little cluster down here, that's prior indecision. Could be prior, we're pretty close here to spot on. So prior resistance offering some support there. You can make that case. But looking down here, can we be more precise about that low? If we're looking at, that's a little bit farther from the 618 than you would anticipate for an algo front run, but that could be what they're doing there. So let's dig into it. Let's go down to a 3 hour, see what that looks like. So if we look down here, so first thing you do whenever you bring up a coin like this and you're trying to get a handle on where we are, where are the threes? Okay, so we can get a very clear picture here. We get an ABC here into this top here, which creates our X wave. Right, so just the first ABC corrects it. Now we're in some sort of an ABC down here, and we've bottom here, and we're trying to get a handle on why. So if we look left, right, so here's that structural support right here. So you can make that case. I'd like it to be a little bit lower, but that could be our hard low. So how else can we qualify it? Well, this gets a little funky in there, but I can see definitely, I'm going to go even down lower. I'm going to go to a 1 hour. Let's pop this up here. So in here, I can certainly see a 3 wave here. And in fact, this to me looks very much like a 5 wave. We can see it's actually impulsive here. We don't overlap the 4. So that would suggest to me, since we come up here and top here, that that's an A wave. So in the reverse engineering that I often talk about, it would appear that we've got an ABC there. So how would we make that fit into what else we've got here? Well, so you could certainly make the case here that we have just another ABC. I don't think that's a 1, 2, 3, 4. I suppose you could argue that there's a possibility that you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got come into a truncated fifth, but I just don't see that as much. I think what you're likely looking at here, as we try and organize this, is something, we'll have to check that, potentially this bottoming down here for our fifth. Now, could that make sense? Well, all we want to do is try and qualify the swings and see if we can get some confidence in them as technical pivots. So let's lower that degree down. We'll go to submenu. Okay, so first let's look here. If we're coming off of this, so ABC, so this would we get almost damn near we're growing again into an ABCX. Yeah, I think that's what you've got here. So it's hard to call this as a 1, 2, 3. Let's check that pivot. So if I look here from the length of the A wave to the B wave here, well, here's 100%. So you could make that case, but I just don't think that's what we've got. I think we get an ABCX and then we go into another. So we've got more complexity here as we go down to the smaller time frame. So my guess is that we would be starting here as our 1 wave. So if I project the length of my 1, well, let's start with that. Okay, well, that's interesting here. So if that's a 1 and we come into an ABC, we go right to where you might anticipate it. That's an extreme, but that's certainly well within the boundaries of a second wave. So 1's the push down. We correct it in 3. We get as high. We know it can be as high as the 50 all the way up to the 786. We get through it by a hair, but that's where we pivot. So the idea being that that's an ABC, that plays, we'll have to maybe backfill into what this is, but that looks like a 1, 2, and then we come down here. So here's algo target that they hit potentially for the 3. We get this a shallow 4, but that's a contender. Now we're already to and through the negative 100. So let's dig a little deeper, see if that could be 3, 4, 5. So let's measure the length of the 1. Come here. Length of the 1 from the 2. What do I get down here if I'm right on it? Well, it's a little shy, but of course what we're running into here, there's the 50%. So that could very well just be the reaction that we're getting off the 50 here. But we get, we're a little shy of the 1618, but I don't see any of the way that we could count that because this appears to be, we get a triangle here. So if I were looking at this and kind of marking it up for myself, this is how I would do it. So I would want to recognize that as a little triangle into the 4th. So that's going to be a shallow 4. So if I look at that, over here and I pull from my 2 high down to my potential 3 low, well, that's a 23.6, you know, in a triangle that's right to the Vegas wave. Love the Vegas wave. Right to it. So we get that triangle and we rip down. So with this pull here from this pivot low here, we go to the 23.6. Here's the algo target, to and through. So since we are to and through and we're kind of in no man's land, that's where, if you see that, we're going to start measuring for algo swing, or pardon me, Elliott swing relationships. So I'm going to take the length of my 1 wave here, and I'm going to project it from my proposed 4, and I'll pull that over so you can see what we line up with. And again, we're just, the whole thing is a little bit shy of where you'd anticipate it. So could that just be front running? Certainly possible. You've got this nice confluence zone down here. Look at this overlap here of the 100%. So that's a common target for a fifth, and I get asked that a lot. So length of the 1 projected from the 4, common targets for that fifth are the 618, which you see right here. This, so if I wiggle it, whoop, no, that's the wrong one. So if I wiggle it here, you see this gold one here, we come right to it. So here, 618, the length of 1 projected from the 4. We get a little reaction, but we roll through, but we don't make the 100. But I do have this nice confluence down here, which kind of, you know, that would have been ideal technically to catch that. Could this be a little front run? Well, this damn near just looks like a straight push down. Oscillators, we can anticipate that that's going to be pinned down here. It's not great. I mean, some divergence. Yeah, you could make this case that we've got divergence here if I look here. Yeah, so from this low here, from that sharp move down, you can see how they both rolled over with some extremity. You know, that was a fairly extreme move, and then we come up with this shallow 4, and then we're extreme down here, so we get the divergence. So that plays. So, you know, it's a potentially, it's just a front run off the 618, front run off of the 100. It's not a lot of distance, but it's enough to make you, you know, would like to see that go a little bit lower. So what do we do? What do we get coming off of that? Well, that potentially here we've got, I'd have to go down to the 15. Well, let's go to the 30 minute and look at that. We'll blow it up a little bit. So what do we get here? Well, if this is our low and we're working off of this as a 2, of course, we're looking for 5 waves. We're looking for a motive wave to come out of there. So do we have the potential structure for it? So, you know, potentially, we don't overlap. So you'd like to see, well, you might have a, yeah, that's a little problematic because that looks more like a diagonal. So is there any other way we can count this? Not really. So this is, well, you might have it this way. So if I go down even lower, we could probably go down to 15 and give it 5 waves this way. So if I go to the smaller time frame, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that potentially plays. Let's change that color. So we'll go up a degree here, so that makes sense. So if that's what we have here, and we're just finishing up this fifth, well, then potentially now we're trying to qualify this. So what are we expecting next? Take this off. It gets a little squirrely. So here's my proposed second. All right, I get 5 waves, and I get 5 waves here to finish it. So all we're trying to do is qualify that as a potential 1 wave to set up a 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's change that color, and we'll go up to minuet. Okay, there we go. So if this is going to play as our low, right? Despite the fact that it was a little bit shy of the common target in the confluence zone that you'd have down here. Well, we can easily get a handle on whether or not that's going to hold and qualify as a second, because now we're looking for the next second. So right here, whoops, come here. Right in this zone where we'd anticipate it, so this would be a common place to look for support, the prior wave 4. So we can see that coming in here in this zone. Here's our buy zone, would be between the 50 and the 618. Now look what's happening here. I'm getting some overlap here. So I've got the, let me see where I'm pulling that from. Okay, so I've got this former target here. So this was the 618 of the length of the first leg. You remember that when we looked at that? So there we have that coming in. So we get this little confluence zone down here where we've got potentially a 1-2 setting up. So let's put that into larger degree. So if that's going to play as a 1-2, you definitely have a potential trade getting set up here. But that straight move down, let's back out. Let's go back to the 30-minute and open it up a little. Sorry, here we got it. Okay, so now that straight move down, yeah, so you can see the 3-wave in that, but that's a little abrupt. You know, I'd be inclined to look at that. So my first thought would tell me that's likely just the A wave going in. So there's the A. We'll challenge that high, and then if we get a rollover again, then we set up for a potential second. So I'd rather have the A hold here. There's Vegas wave potentially coming into play. So what I'd rather see, if I had my druthers, if I could script it the way I'd like to see it, I would be more comfortable with that coming down here to give me that 3-wave structure that we'd want to look for. That's even though we have the little 3-wave here. The first move down is typically, you know, the A wave, right? So it doesn't mean you can't trade it. So if this does come down to the 50, if we're just going to rip down here, and this is not going to give it to us, and we're going to come down here to this 50, and we're going to get in there. Well, I'm not saying you couldn't trade that. But for the longer, that might be just a little swing trade, something you could do looking for, anticipating that if you're going to come up here for the B, well, you know you're likely going to run into some resistance along the way, right? The trend has been down, so we know the algos will be looking for sells. So here's that coming down. If we were to come down to the 50, let's say we front run it there. Well, here's the 786. So is that enough juice for you to take it? I mean, you know, that there's not a lot there. So if we just look at the risk reward, if you're a buyer here, you know, you've got, so if I just do it visually, so you've got that kind of risk reward. So that, what is that? Probably 3 to 1. If I look at this as my risk tolerance, I'm going to stop out under the 65. That may not be 3 to 1. That may be 2 to 1. Not enough for me. Personally, that's not enough there. Now, granted, you risk this thing taking off, and you're wrong, and that's the ABC, and we just get a very skinny correction over the length of this. That's the risk you take if you hold and you don't take it. If you take it and you trail with a stop, you might get lucky. You might get the one that just runs. I'm inclined to look for more structure there. So I would want to see this work its way up for a B leg. Wherever we bottom down here, we don't know where it's going to be. I'd be looking for that B, and then I'd be waiting for the C. Now, remember in crypto, we got to watch for those shallow Cs. We see them all the time. But here's the traditional Elliott wave play right there. So if you get the opportunity to be a buyer here, let's say we come back down here, and we've got this is a target. So here, I'll split the difference. So, what kind of upside? So your stop's going to need to be on the other side of the 65, even though, yes, we know that a second can go lower. We could easily come down to the 786, which means you got stopped out. I understand that. Better to take the small loser there than rationalize and be bringing this all the way down here below the low. No need to do it. I'd much rather take the small loser there and just look to reposition. If we're going to come down here and challenge the 786 and we get a reaction off of that, well, then I can wait and look for a 1 yet again, and then do the same thing, just take the next retracement coming down. If I can get this thing hot, just take the next one coming down. Come here. So then you're here essentially doing the same thing. Right? If we get, I'm hypothetical here, we don't know how high that goes. But you just be looking for the next retracement. Now you've got, again, that same setup here. You know where to get in, you know where you're wrong. That's why I like that. So if I can get an ABC, and ideally it comes down between the 50 and the 618, because my stop is tighter. So I have less to lose if it keeps going. I get stopped out. That's why ideally, you're coming in here, you're buying between the 50 and the 618. So what kind of target do I have? Well, if I just, knowing that my negative 100 is going to be very close to the 1618, which is my common target for a third, well, I've got a potential roadmap here. So if this is going to get up here, if that's going for my third, remember, it's not going to go straight, so it's going to do it. So if I get the good entry here, then I'm likely going to do something like this going up. So let's we'll put that in yellow, and we'll go to minuet. Okay, so then I'm likely going to have just the same thing. Remember, it's waves within waves, so I'm going to get a 3, 4, potentially I get my 5 up here to complete what would be the third relative to this move here, the 1. Can I get that? Well, you know, it's not going to go straight, right? So you're going to, that's a contender. So all you have there is a potential roadmap. So if we pull this down and we look at that risk reward and say, is that worth it if I get just on the other side of this? So there's 9.16 to 1. Knowing that there's going to be little retracements along the way. We're not going to go straight. You're going to have to deal with that. If we come up here and we do this with an Elliott count, you're going to have to deal with the 4 and the 2. Those are potential places to add leverage, to add to it. You know, if you're here, if you were buying it here or you bought it here, if you're adding here, you know, you've got profit you're adding on to. And, you know, at that point, your worst case is maybe you take a scratch on it. If it just collapses and you get the count to fail for whatever reason, it happens all the time. Counts fail all the time. They are only just potential roadmaps. But if that's the case, then all right, well, you went in, you took a scratch. No, you know, you didn't take a loser. Maybe you gave back a little profit. That's why if you come up to a level like this, not a bad idea to take a partial. Always if you get that kind of a move, that kind of distance, never a bad idea to put a portion of it in your pocket and then look to reallocate more funds here if you get a technical pivot here for a 4th. All just trying to line up for that move right there. So if we pull that back out now and say, well, where is that relative to where we are in the big picture? All right, so again, as where we started, a lot of blue sky. We're just trying to get started. But see, that's what happens to people, you know, especially if they're down here on the 15-minute. They lose perspective on where it could be going. Because this looks like, wow, that's a lot of range. That's a lot of range we're trading in. Look at the size of those moves. That beautiful. But, you know, if you take this thing back out to where we started, and even if we go to a 4-hour, you know, you're just getting, those are little baby moves. Those are just getting started. So the point is trying to get in here. Well, here's the first algo target. Right, we're you know, screwing around down here trying to get in here. That's just the first algo target. That would not be a 3rd. We'd likely barely be as longer than the 1. So you know, keep perspective on where you are. If we get that, if that plays that way, then you've just likely all you've done is put in the 1 wave. If you're going to go up here to the potential 3rd, which is going to be way up here, because remember it's going to be close to the negative 100. That's what you're trying to get positioned for. Right there. Okay, that's a long way off. Right? So keep some perspective on it so you know why you're screwing around in there trying to get positioned. And if you're going to, you know, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to be a swing trader, you know, if you want to bank the entire move, that's fine. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying think about where you are in the context of where the thing could be going, because that could very well, if this pivots down here, then this is likely just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it's always, where am I in the wave count? Where am I? You know, again, that's, you know, a lot of people have issues with Elliott wave and they just think, it's bullshit, it doesn't work, you know, I've seen it fail 100 times. You know, you're missing the point, man. It's what it's about is organizing the chaos. Otherwise, you know, how are you going to approach this? How are you going to qualify? How are you going to measure? If you just blow it off as, you know, just this technical bullshit, you know, it's just these technicians doing this shit. I don't care about it. I'm a buy and hold. Well, you know, more power to you. I mean, that you got paid well for doing that in 2017. How's it going in 2018? Yeah, not as well. Right? Not as well for anyone. Swing to anyone. All of this, unless you're constantly short selling, it's been a very difficult first few months of the year. Bear market in alts. Bitcoin, undecided, unconfirmed. Where are we going? So you want to get in here and dig around with the 30-minute charts and the 15-minute charts? Well, nothing wrong with it. You can certainly play it safely. But if this is all just a big 1-2, you know, 2018 is setting up to be a great year if you're trading Lumen, if you can get in. So, you know, think about how you want to approach it. What are you trying to accomplish? What time frame are you trading on? Are you trying to get positioned to be in here for the giant move off of the 4-hour? Or are you just screwing around, you know, in the 30, not screwing around is the wrong way to say it. Are you just looking for little singles all the way coming down, you know, if we go back down to the 30-minute and we get in here? Are you trying to make these moves? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You're going to get stopped out a whole lot more. It's the, you know, the shorter the time frame, the more volatile, the harder it is to get a feel for what's going on. The trickier the wave counts. They're there, but you have a lot more noise. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? If you're trying to get this move here from this pivot low to this swing high, that's a nice trade. That's a beautiful trade. But where are you in the larger degree? Do you want to take a full position there? Do you want to get out of your position there? Where are you relative to where it could be going? Things to think through. All right, guys, I'll stop it there.